You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network. Welcome to episode 9 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I am Jonathan Giles from All on Georgia Douglas, All on Georgia Carroll, and I'm here full time now. So that's pretty exciting. I'm pretty happy about that. Got Jessica Salaji here with me. Yeah, she's happy about that too. I don't know how happy she'll be about that by next week, but right now she's happy. So she's the boss. So
You're the boss.
No. Listen, don't let her fool you. Any complaints you may ever have about anything you read on All on Georgia, whether it's an AP article or an article from anywhere else in the state, contact Jessica Salaji and she will take care of it.
Jessica at allongeorgia.com.
She'll handle every concern you ever have with All on Georgia.
I don't answer emails, so...
She answers text messages in her...
Rarely.
I don't answer the phone. I don't answer emails. I don't check my voicemail. Don't call. Don't write. Don't visit.
Oh, she's got the salad bowl cup again. The coffee almost came out her nose. Did you see that?
I did.
Tea. Sorry, it's tea. Oh, well, I'm here too.
What's in your cup?
Coffee. Well, see, you know, I'm having to help some people move some things, and I passed by the Krispy Kreme between my office and the assisted living facility that was there, and the hot light was on, and I'm fat, and I couldn't resist. Like, it called to me. So I got 2 dozen donuts and a large coffee.
How many donuts?
You what?
How many donuts?
2 dozen.
You ate 2 dozen?
No, I bought 2 dozen.
Oh,
I only,
dude, you gotta relax.
I only ate 4.
Dozen.
No, just 4 donuts.
All right. You know, I once lost a girlfriend because she thought I was being romantic because I stopped at the local Krispy Kreme. Actually, it wasn't a local Krispy Kreme. I was driving through Atlanta, so I stopped at the Krispy Kreme on Ponce on my way home and picked up a couple dozen donuts. Well, I ate them all on the way home because I was hungry. It had been a long day, and so she comes running out to my truck, and there I am with an empty box of donuts, and we didn't last much longer after that.
Aww.
I think she was just using me for the donuts. In any event, we've got some gun craziness going on this week. You know, several different pieces of gun craziness going on. Starting up in North Carolina with a half-crazed sheriff. Sheriff candidate. No, he's not a sheriff yet, but a sheriff candidate who decided that he was going to get tough on what he refers to as, quote, disobedient gun owners.
Right. So he was speaking to a group from Moms Demand Action, and specifically what he said was that he would have no problem taking firearms from gun owners, cold, dead hands. That was a quote. The article goes on to say that later he kind of realized the gravity of what he just admitted, and he added, whenever you pass away, we'll come get it. But I think you said earlier that you'd seen the video, Giles.
Yoo-hoo.
Oh, he left.
I mean, bro. Oh, boy.
All right,
Yeah,
so where
not...
we left off, because I didn't realize I was reading when I was commenting on the North Carolina.
You didn't realize you were reading.
I was reading.
Man, I had to go get a Coke.
Right.
That's why you left?
Yeah.
Well, like
I needed something to
like,
drink.
I'm like sitting here talking and tossing to you, and you're. So anyway, I made a comment about that I hadn't seen the video, but I thought that earlier you had said you had.
Yeah, I've seen the video. The video is quite. It's really, there's a lot in the video that you really can't really put together from the article. You can really tell that this guy is. If you ever had one of those situations where you're just kind of running off at the mouth and then you realize who's listening, it's kind of one of those things. I'm thinking that he had probably, and it's something that all three of us have experienced doing what we do. Where sometimes people get to talking and they forget that your camera is sitting right there.
Right.
And I honestly believe that that's what happened to that fellow. That he's probably politically smart enough that he would have, under normal circumstances, never made those comments on camera. But yeah, he decided to go ahead and, he was going to impress those Moms Demand Action people. And then he's like, oh, hell, there's a camera here.
Whoops.
Hello.
So, I read an article that said that a local government outside, I think it's Deerfield, city of Deerfield, outside of Chicago, is going to call for their citizens to turn in their guns if they can hold more than 10 bullets at a time, or 10 rounds, however you want to say it. But, I think we're going to see more and more of this with local governments trying to trump the Constitution.
Aha, I see what you did there. Trump the Constitution. Speaking of basic civil rights, a 17-year-old... Yeah, well, we don't, but sometimes I like to pretend that we do. A 17-year-old boy outside Memphis was gunned down recently. Thursday night, it would appear, although this article is very strange in the way that it's written. But it appears that he was gunned down Thursday evening by a gas station clerk or owner. It says clerk, Anwar Ghazali. Drew his weapon from the right side of his body and fired several rounds at Harris as he ran away. What did Harris do? Harris stole a beer. Didn't, come in pointing guns at the clerk. Nothing like that. Basically, dumb kid shoplifted a beer. Got shot multiple times in the back.
Not really any justification for shooting someone as they're leaving. I was taught that, you never shoot someone in the back. That kind of takes away your stand your ground and self-defense thing, so.
And it's one of those things where, situations like that, real-life situations like that are so fluid that they happen. But, when someone's actively running away from you, then, yeah, it's absolutely wrong to do that. And, also, apparently the clerk never notified law enforcement that he shot the guy at all.
I think that's what's most troubling about this at all, is that his conscience did not demand that he take some sort of action afterward,
Right. Yeah, because he clearly said, I think I shot him. And the fact that he thought it was cool to just, go back in the gas station and go back to work and, never follow up at all is troubling, at least to, me.
And also just to throw in a little historic note here, Tennessee versus Garner, which is a Supreme Court case that actually involves the shooting of fleeing criminals, happened in Tennessee. It involved a child, 13-year-old, I believe, who was jumping a fence with a television that he just jacked out of somebody's house, and I don't remember exactly what agency. If it were Memphis, that would be real irony. But yeah, he was jumping a fence, holding a TV, and he was just gunned down by the cop as he jumped the fence. So yeah,
So
that's
that's an interesting question. That's at a tangent. That's an interesting question. Should police be able to shoot someone who's running?
well, there are situations where they can. It's if you're if number one, if you're a convict, if you're particularly something that's relevant to your interest down there in South Georgia, with all the prisons being in South Georgia, somebody jumps the fence at Reedsville, uh, yeah, they can be shot in the back, and it's perfectly legal. It's within Georgia law. Another group is if you're intending on if they have reasonable belief that you're going to harm other people. If you run into a gas station and shoot somebody, then keep going, then and then run back out with the gun still in your hand, then yeah, you can be shot in the back. But yeah, I don't think shoplifters or really any type of property crime should be just summarily executed.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I can't think of a scenario where I would shoot someone trying to steal my truck. I would most definitely shoot somebody coming through my door. But
Right, yeah. It's one of the most common ways to find out whether anybody really knows anything about actual self defense laws and actual justification is to ask them. If you're say you wake up in the middle of the night and you look out your window and you see somebody breaking your car, can you shoot them? You'd be amazed at the number of people say,
no,
yeah,
I'm not amazed because I've seen those conversations where people are like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Good lord."
yeah. It's,
I'm pretty sure the law is pretty clear about your life or someone else's life, not
Right.
property.
yep. But apparently that beer was worth that kid's life.
Wonder if it's going to be.
There was,
Wonder if it's going to be worth a murder conviction.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it were. Particularly, I'm tacking on the fact that, the kid, died 2 days. The kid was found 2 days later, and the gas station clerk never notified law enforcement.
Right.
I don't see anything where it was, to point to a situation where he was just, kind of ignorant of the law, but he's trying to do what he can. Because I don't think there's anybody who's even considered self-defense laws that thinks that there's scenarios where you can shoot somebody and not notify law
Right.
enforcement.
No, I mean the report that I read said he had been charged with first degree murder.
I'm not familiar enough with Tennessee criminal law to comment on because I don't know exactly what the points on first degree murder are. So, I don't
Right.
know.
All right. So this nurse, he was a nurse anesthetist, which is like a nurse version of an anesthesiologist. And several years ago, he was convicted of molestation and sodomy of young girls that he had put under. And apparently, there was some kind of thing where the judge in the case should have recused himself from it because he worked on a campaign briefly with some other member of the the district attorney's team or something. I'm not real sure what it was, but what happened is the appellate court overturned or tossed out the conviction, and rather than hold on to him to retry everything, they just let him go, and now they can't find him.
Well, pedophiles running wild in Cobb.
Oh man, this dude's got man. If I was him, I'd be in like South America.
I'd be hiding, that's for sure.
This is interesting though because Judge Green, I used to work in Cobb County in the court system, and Judge Green has had a plethora of articles and videos done about him um, for conflicts of interest, and he was actually caught on tape a few years ago saying some terrible things about defendants. And I mean, he's no rookie. He's one of the reasons that they turned off some of the cameras in the courtrooms during certain proceedings. So, you know, not that that has a whole lot to do with the fact that this disgusting man is on the run, but Judge Green's cases, this he's got plenty of them that are in situations they shouldn't be because of his behavior.
Right. My mom actually worked with this guy. She's the one that sent me the story, even. But she's tore up because she knows him and she feels sorry for whatever community he's hiding in right now.
Speaking of feeling sorry for communities, there are communities all over this state that are having huge multi-way primaries going up. It's quite, we can, one of the ones that I found very interesting was actually in Matt's district, House District 19. Paulette Rakestraw, who just squeaked by. I think it was by a few votes of being loser of the week. I think that the local electorate has declared her loser of the week as well. I mean, they're coming out of the woodwork. She's got 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats challenging her.
Right.
Well, I think it's interesting. Isn't she one of the few people in the state who drew more than one primary opponent as an incumbent?
Well, and it appears that she is. There's because there's a lot of there's several races that we're going to cover where where it's the other party is coming out in large numbers to go after them. But yeah, it looks like Rakestraw. I'm not gonna say that this is exhaustive and that she is the only incumbent that drew that many primary opponents, but she is certainly one of the few, and she's done it before. She's this is not the first time. She had 2 primary opponents in 2016. Full disclosure, Matt Lowe was one of them.
She also had 2 opponents in 2012. I think 2014 was the only year that she ran unopposed in a primary.
Yeah, and there's
when you suck, you suck.
Yeah, there's some shadiness going on with that 2014 run too, but I'm not going to get on the air. I'm not going to go on with it here because I have my own conspiracy theories that I can't prove, and if I could prove them, by God, they would be all over all on Georgia, right? But I can't. And then there's the Earl Earhart race. House District 36. He's retired, but
what a sham.
Well, his wife Jenny is running, which is something you don't see a lot of in the legislature. Typically, that's something that's reserved for judges.
At least here in Albany.
Yeah. But so it's so there's 3 Republicans in that race, and then there's 1 Democrat. Sam Teasley, he's drawn. There's 3 Democrats that are primarying against Teasley, and he's a Republican. What's up with that?
Sam Teasley is a Christian conservative candidate, and he actually got elected against a Democrat. Like the district, it was a close race. He squeaked it out by grassroots campaigning and knocking on doors and handwritten notes and all kinds of personal touches. But, I think that in his district, a Democrat is the biggest threat, which is odd to say. But that's that's what he's already faced before. So it's really interesting. I don't know anything about the three people running against him, but
Yeah,
our
I don't
districts
either.
are so fluid right now. I mean, my Senate district where Hunter Hill was, he quit in the middle of his term, so they had to pay for a special election, and the person who got his seat is a Democrat, and that was a red seat. So, we're seeing districts flip all over the place.
Yeah, and speaking of that, on the exact opposite end of that spectrum, Erica Thompson, who is one of the most liberal Democrats uh, in the House, is being challenged by three other Democrats and a Republican. So that's it's very odd that I'm guessing that maybe I don't know if the Democrats feel like that she has gone so far to the left that she is easy pickings for a seat, or what the strategy is there. But yes, she's being challenged by three Democrats in the primary.
I hope they all lose.
Well, and she's made comments about she's made some gun confiscation comments. So yeah, I'm wondering if that might be the driving force behind that. Is that they feel like they better get her out of there before the NRA dumps a bunch of money into a Republican in that seat.
Right.
So, and speaking of dumping money into seats, you'll be happy to hear this, Jessica. Renee Unterman has an opponent in the general, so she's a Democrat, but I don't know whether a Democrat can win that seat though.
I think enough people dislike Renee Unterman, they'd be willing to donate to a Democrat.
Yeah, I do. I do as well. I know that she did have a primary opponent in the last election for about a week, and it was a situation that I had done a little bit of research on, and I'm not going to make any allegations here. I'm just going to lay out some facts and let people come to their own conclusions. Her primary opponent ran a home health care / medical supply company. Wheelchairs, hospital beds for homes, that kind of thing, which of course meant that his business was probably very largely at the mercy of Medicaid. So he announced that he was going to be the primary opponent for Renee Unterman. He was going to oppose her in the Republican election of 2016, and that lasted for about a week before he went down to the Secretary of State's office and pulled his qualification paperwork.
Which I'm kind of glad about because we don't need a coward.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But I mean, it's like, you know, I suppose that when you build your business on the idea of government entitlement programs, such things can happen to you.
Is there any chance that his
So,
business got a contract?
well, if the thing about it is that I don't know that, but what I do know is that if his home health care, if you're running a home health care business, your business is probably at least 85% Medicaid.
Really?
More than likely, I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. Typically, the largest expenses of any of most people's healthcare comes in at the end. In the last little bit of it, and by that time, you probably are on Medicaid.
Yeah. And who controls Medicaid in this state? I'll let you throw that in your Google machines, folks.
Your Google
And
device.
on that, yeah, and on that note, this is the perfect time to let you know that these are our opinions. These are not the opinions of all on Georgia. This is all us. So there you go. Yeah, these are not the opinions of all on Georgia. They do not represent any corporate entity therein. I don't even know why that is phrased that way, but there it is.
It's the
Did y'all see
disclaimer.
the YouTube shooter?
I saw memes about it more than anything. I did get a notification as I was leaving work that it was going on. So I haven't read any articles about it other than whatever memes that I may have seen coming across Facebook, and
my thing about it, and I hate that people lost their lives, so I hate to downplay it, but I hate the term active shooter for this, because this is seeming more and more like, based on the latest news reports that I've seen on this, that this is a kind of a domestic jilted lover type thing. But I've also seen some things that she was a half crazed liberal vegan content provider who was upset because they had demonetized her videos. Which made me wonder, Matt, did you ever date this girl?
No. I did not.
Okay. Well, look, I was just going to let you take the lead on the whole story, and we were gonna break it right here with a whole background and history if you had. But there's, like you said, there's a lot of memes going around. It's rather inappropriate. I don't wish to see people shot up just because they don't allow gun videos on their on their forum or on their website, but it's making you wonder, looking at all of the facts here, is this even what happened here? Is that what happened? Did this was this an active shooter, or was this a woman who was very upset because she'd found out she was being cheated on, and she decided to go take out the man and the woman that were doing it? Not to say that's appropriate either, but it's a completely different thing than I'm going to run into a building and try to kill as many people as I possibly can.
Right. Yeah, I think that I probably would not agree with the idea that is a mass shooting. Active shooter. Yeah, I mean, if you're in in a workplace and you're firing off rounds, I think that probably qualifies as an active shooter.
Well, yeah, that's become one of the issues with the way that this is statistically reported. And in general, this is a huge thing with school shootings. It's like, the cops can get in a 15-mile high-speed chase with somebody on the night of the 4th of July when school is out, that ends in a school parking lot. And they end up having to shoot somebody. The cops have to shoot somebody at the end of a high-speed chase in a high school parking lot. They'll call it a school shooting.
Yeah, I mean, they call it a school shooting if someone shows up and commits suicide at the school.
Yes.
I think the numbers that you see on school shootings are obviously very tilted. Mass shootings also have some very different definitions depending on who you ask. I think the FBI says that it has to be 4 or more people that were shot, and then I've seen others where they use 3, which may not seem like that big of a difference, but I mean,
yeah. So it's a crazy story, and I'm sure that there's much more that's going to come out of that. So listen up, folks. Our parent company, All on Georgia, we recently launched an entirely new website. It's a new look, new features, new information from the same authors that you know and trust to bring you the most up-to-date information in an unbiased and fair fashion. So visit allongeorgia.com today to see the new design and find the market closest to you, which may well be Carroll County. So check that out. Yeah. Since Trump is not getting the funding for his wall, he's just going to put the National Guard up there. So I know that I've seen Matt Lowe has provided some commentary on this. So what do you think about Trump militarizing the border? You think he can pull it
Well, I
off?
mean, yeah, he can do it. It's been done before. Bush did it. Obama did it. Here's the thing, though. He could send the National Guard down there, and it's not going to accomplish what everyone thinks it is going to accomplish, because they can't intervene. The military can't intervene. It's against the law for the military to enforce domestic law.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what people can't really seem to wrap their heads around is that, yeah, look, we can send an entire division down there, but it's not like they can just open fire on people crossing the border.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it says right here that Pentagon rules mean that the National Guard is unable to confront or detain suspects. Thus, they needed to call Customs and Border Patrol officers if they saw someone they suspected of smuggling drugs or entering illegally. So, all it is, it's a presence, and that's it. And from what I'm reading here, the numbers were for 14 months, it was 145 million that, and I can't remember which one did that, if that was a Bush or an Obama thing, but Operation Jumpstart lasted 2 years and it was $1.2 billion. So, I mean, I don't know. It's like I say, I've been having this conversation with other people, and it's not going to have the desired effect that they think it is anyway. It's just going to spend a bunch of money and have a bunch of folks on our border, and it's not really going to change anything in the end.
So, I'm not in favor of it unless we're going to bring all of the troops home from around the world. No, I'm not a fan of just deploying more people to the... I understand it's been done in the past, but I just would rather see people who are deployed around the nation or the world be brought home to do that instead of trying to simultaneously do both, because it's clearly not... What we're doing is not working. Just throwing more people at it isn't going to work either.
Right.
So it's time. It's time for the loser of the week.
Loser!
The loser of the week. If you'll recall, the nominees last week were the Georgia House of Representatives as a whole, Governor Nathan Deal, and Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle. Well, let me tell you, folks, it was a neck-and-neck race. It truly and absolutely was. I am stalling for time right now as I try very, very hard to pull this up so that I can tell you the actual results. Because, see, we don't do this. Nobody knows ahead of time. I want true reactions at the time that we're discussing it. So, oh, wow. Wow.
Tell us what we've won, Bob.
We have a tie.
Did you vote?
I did
Jessica,
not vote.
did you vote?
Well,
I did too.
Did
I
you
did.
vote, Matt? You did too? See, my problem is, I'm such a contrarian that we have a two-way tie, and I would vote for the guy that has no votes.
Okay, so who tied?
Who do you think has no votes
Nathan
right
Deal.
now? You would be correct, sir. Nobody voted for Nathan Deal.
Wow, not one.
Sounds like previous elections. But we have a tie right now between Casey Cagle. I mean, he's Casey Cagle. And the Georgia General Assembly for yet another loser-like performance. So, how do we proceed from here?
Coin flip?
That's rock, paper, scissors. So,
Okay. I tell you what. That's I think that's a great way to do it. I'll be the judge. So you and Matt can rock, paper, scissors, and
Okay,
we'll go ahead and we'll get started here.
if I win, Kegels the loser. If he wins, the other people, the General Assembly.
Okay. All right. Here
So
we go.
It's rock, paper, scissors.
All right, so it's like,
Okay.
Okay, we're discussing the rules now. We've got
Okay.
Jessica and we've got Matt. Jessica is ready to go. I mean, she's got her fist in her hand and she is just ready to go. Matt is staring blankly. He's not sure what to do. He's trying to get a read on her.
Come on.
But I believe that Jessica already has a plan in place. She's excited. She's ready to go. What are you doing,
I'm waiting.
Matt? You're staring at the camera. You look
All
like...
right.
All right. Let's go.
Rock, paper,
Paper.
scissors. I win.
what was that?
Jessica
bombed the
Salaji has nuked it from orbit.
What did you even try to throw
Scissors.
out there?
Those scissors are gone now.
Scissors
All
don't
right.
hold a candle to my
Okay, so Casey Cagle, you are this week's loser of the
Casey,
week.
the shoe man Cagle.
Easy now, easy. Those are unfounded allegations that we can't prove. And this is a good time to remind you again that these are not the opinions of All on Georgia.
Nope, that one's my opinion.
I think there's a lot of industry in the Velcro industry. I truly do. You know, so...
I think that if he's elected, there'll be a Velcro plant in every congressional district in the state.
Well, there we go. So you heard it here first. Casey Cagle is all about job creation in the Velcro industry. So, you know... So Jessica threw the bomb and bombed that from orbit, and you know Jessica had a visitor yesterday. It was quite the story. That was I'll let Jessica tell that story. It's a tale of excitement and fury, and it's just a very exciting tale of a lady and her Prince Charming bug man and his failure to do his job and her requirement to do his job.
They're a great company. The problem is that after the poison has been dispersed along the outside house, the bugs like come out of crevices. And I live in an old house on a slab, or not on a slab, it's on crawl space, and so Lord only knows what's under my house. And there was a
You've never
roach.
been in your crawl space?
Hell no.
Lord.
There's a cat that lives under there, but he's not doing his job either. But anyway, there was a roach in my house, and I would rather have to shoot an intruder or drive my car off a cliff to another cliff before I would want to deal with a roach.
So,
I don't sleep well when I know they're in the house.
is it like the German roaches, or is it like what we call the palmetto bugs?
Okay, when you say palmetto bug, that makes it seem like it's like a ladybug.
No. All right, so
Beetle.
the German roaches, they're the ones that are bad, right? They're like they'll infest your house.
I think we're talking about a
And,
cockroach.
yeah, that's a cockroach.
No, it's a palmetto
But
bug.
but those, I'm talking about those big ass.
They fly.
Do they? I don't know. I squish them when I see them.
See, my roaches don't fly.
It's like the most stressful thing about living. It's the most stressful thing about living alone, being me, all of it. Like, I'm absolutely terrified. When I first moved in the house, I had all this work done, and a lot of my pipes were open because the bathrooms were being changed out, and there were bugs coming in because it was raining, and I'm not kidding you, like, I lived in sheer terror. I would stand on a chair to do anything because I didn't want to be on the floor. Like, I'm terrified of these things. Absolutely terrified. The dogs don't help me at all. And now I live out in the country, and so I don't have neighbors that I can just holler at. So
My wife has a cousin who is as terrified of bugs like that as you are. And there has been multiple times over the last few years that I've had to get in my truck and drive, whatever it is, 5 or 6 miles to her house to go squish a bug because her husband works nights or whatever. I find it quite comical that someone can't just put on a shoe and go squish the bug. But
heck no, that means you have to get way too
my
close.
wife could tell you a story about me. I'm not a fan of spiders.
That's quite an understatement.
And
or snakes. I'll tell you a story about Matt and snakes.
well, snakes just if I know they're there, like I don't get surprised by them. But even then, I don't typically I don't kill them if I'm out hunting or whatever. I just I have a healthy respect for them. The spiders scare the crap out of me. And one night, my wife was like, "Matt, come here." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, walk in the room, and she's pointing above my head. She's like, "Kill it." And I'm like, "Kill what?" And I turn and look, and there's a spider. Now, this spider's about the size of my pinky fingernail, right? But I grabbed something. I don't remember what it was that I grabbed now to hit it. And I missed, and it caused the spider to fling back on to me. And everyone in my house hears me scream. It was like a woman. My dignity was left in that room. It was terrible. I was like, "Ah!" My kids come running in there. "What's the matter?" My wife starts dying laughing at me. It's the most unmanly thing you've ever seen, ever.
I don't know, the hunting expedition where you unloaded an entire Glock magazine at a
It was
rattlesnake.
8 rounds and a 5.5 foot long diamondback rattlesnake that was literally at my feet.
I mean, you hear the one shot go off, and then it's like, okay, maybe he came upon a snake, and then you hear bam, 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 bam.
No,
bam.
it wasn't even. It wasn't even
going.
that, dude. Here, I'll tell the story real quick. It's kind of easy. All right, because it was the first time that I'd ever heard a rattlesnake rattle in person, right? But what I did, I was scouting some deer hunting property, and I walked in following a creek, and I was like, "Oh, look, here's a trail." So I bailed off the creek, and I took a few steps, and when you're scouting, you're walking slow and you're looking around, and I'd stopped, and I hear this sound, and I start looking in the trees because I thought it was bees. And I'm looking all around, and finally I look down at my feet, and there this big bastard was. And my first shot was, it couldn't have been any sooner than the pistol cleared the holster. I was still at my waist when I pulled the trigger on that first shot. And I start taking steps backwards while shooting. And I remember having the very conscious decision of don't go back anymore because I had just turned right. So I knew that I hadn't just walked where I was headed, and I was scared to death I was going to walk right into another one backwards. But I think I shot that snake 8 times.
Loser of the week.
So I'd like to nominate Ed Setzler. I don't know if you saw the video going around on Facebook where he questioned State Representative Alan Peake while he was in the well about adding different conditions to the THC cannabis oil legislation. He just the video is going around on Facebook right now, but basically he just berated him about how our levels that we already allow and the conditions we allow are already too high and too loosely legislated, and basically went all like big government on the issue. And so I'd like to nominate him.
Here, here.
Right?
You know what makes me sad, because I found some interesting things about Ed Setzler's primaries as well, but I actually didn't include those in the story because I thought the others were more interesting. But
Well, maybe next week we could play a little of the audio.
You know, I'm kind of conflicted. Part of me wants to nominate Lindsey Tippins because for whatever reason he's all twisted up about spending extra money on charter schools. But then the other part of me says not to, because at least he's principled enough that he gave up a committee chairmanship position over his belief that they're spending too much money on charter schools.
So why don't you do the loser of the week, Lindsey Tippins, and not Lindsey Tippins? Let the people decide if he's a loser or not.
what are you doing?
Me?
Yes.
My pants have a hole,
Mine too. They have 3 of them.
and I'm trying to figure out if I...
One at the bottom of each leg.
Like, I don't understand how it happens.
You know, I legit thought you were painting your toenails in the middle of the podcast. When I first looked up and saw you doing that, that's what it looked like.
No. And then I also have, like, ankles full of ant bites, so I was looking at those too. But, alright, so Lindsey Tippins, not Lindsey Tippins, and Ed Setzler.
Ed Setzler. Okay. So, Lindsey Tippins, you may not be a loser this week. This is a first for us.
Okay.
Local news. I know that we've already talked off the air. Jessica has no local news. I'll tell you about my local news. The Temple City Council voted unanimously to alter their city charter to allow them to present ordinances, have public hearings on them, vote on them, and enact them all in one evening. So that's out there. You can read more about that on allongeorgia.com/Carol. Matt, what's been going on in your part of the world?
You know, it's been a little slow. I'm still waiting for some information to trickle in regarding some of the stories that I'm working on. But you know, it was really interesting. We're at the Dallas City Council meeting the other night, and I was unaware that the city of Dallas had a marshal in addition to the police department, and the marshal catches, you know, rabid animal calls, or kind of like a code enforcement type guy. But anyway, he apparently caught enough rabid animal calls in the previous month that he had to put down with his sidearm, that he asked for money to buy a smaller rimfire, like a 22 caliber gun to kill the foxes and raccoons and whatever else that he has to do, because apparently a 45 is a bit much to use in the parking lot of a nursing home. I thought it was interesting that he didn't have $200 or something like that available in discretionary spending for that purchase. But another interesting thing is one of the folks watching saw it, sent me a text, and told me to get with that marshal afterwards and let him know that if the funding for the 22 was approved, that his company would provide a silencer for that firearm free of charge.
Anybody have any closing thoughts this week?
You know, I don't. I've got
Closing
no
thoughts.
concluding thoughts that have anything to do with government.
The deadline to register to vote in the May 22nd primary is Tuesday, April 24th. You can do it at your local Board of Elections office or online at the Secretary of State's office, but you need to vote. Unless you don't know who you're voting for, then just
Right?